one of the best interviews that we have on this live because we have Victor.
Hey, man.
Victor, the guy that you see all over TikTok, literally one of the greatest, probably political commentators of our time. He goes viral every year, once a day. The guy is incredible. So Victor, thank you so much for popping on here. And we have Fabian, our co-founder of Breakaway USA. I don't think you guys have met.
No. Hey everyone, how are you, Victor?
I'm well, man. Good to meet you. And
good evening, everyone who's tuning in. You're in
a warm welcome, man.
Well, we're really excited to have you. We met in Dallas last year for a conference that we were at, and we only got to talk for a little bit. And to be honest, I didn't. I'm sorry, but I didn't know who you were, and then I started following you. I was like, oh, this guy's
how dare you, Gentry?
He is freaking a stud.
Broke my heart there, man. And no, to be honest, when I saw you at Dallas, I was like, I know that guy. You know, I'm meeting all these people for the first time, and I'm trying to like put faces to like accounts and stuff like that. I was like, I know him, but I've seen him, but I have no idea. I thought you were like a huge deal. I was like, this guy is like we got Ben Shapiro in the house. Like, for real honest, I was like, man, he's a big guy, like big deal. This guy's a big deal.
Oh man, well,
good to be with you, man.
I don't know. I've been deleted more than a few times, especially on TikTok. But I mean, we're really stoked to have you. Everybody who's on here, by the way, go follow Victor. He works with Gateway Pundit, and I'm pretty sure you have like 20 radio shows and 17 podcasts that you're doing. I mean, you're literally online all the time. I don't know how you manage to have a personal life. By the way, you just got engaged.
Yes.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Getting married April 27th, man. I'm super excited. Can't come fast enough.
Oh my gosh. You're just a stud. You're getting after it. Okay. So one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here is to talk about some current events, right? Maybe Taylor Swift, maybe the border. But I also wanted to ask you, just to start off, like, what's been your most favorite story to follow since you started?
Man, oh my goodness, that's a lot. The story that got me into creating content on social media was some of the, I'll call it fortifications, so that we're not like banned from here. The fortifications that led up to the 2020 election really caught my attention. So I kind of have to give it to that. That's one of the most important issues of our time. If we don't have elections that lack fortifications, then we don't have a free country at all. So it's got to be that. That was the first thing that like I had videos go viral on. But really social issues. As of lately, conservatives for the last, and I don't say this to offend anybody, but it's incredibly true. For the last 50, 60 years, conservatives have failed to effectively conserve anything. Like our Second Amendment has been eroded, First Amendment has been eroded, and especially social values, where, you know, things that were unthinkable 10 years ago, it's just what happens today. Like Gateway Pundit just reported on this maybe 2 days ago. A Montana couple lost custody of their child because they wouldn't transition them. And we're talking about, I think there was a 14-year-old girl that said she was a boy or whatever, the vice versa, and they lose custody of their child. You know, if you go back 10, 15 years and you're trying to explain that to somebody, they would think you were crazy. They would never in a million years take you seriously. Like, yeah, people are losing custody of their kids because they won't chop off their genitals. They would think you were completely insane. So to see the failures of conservatism, especially as it relates to social issues, people had a really laissez-faire approach to that for a long time. Very libertarian. Like I myself kind of fell into that for a while, where I was like, I don't care what you do, as long as you're not like punching me in the face, it's totally fine. Well, it all wraps around, right? Everything is downstream from culture in some capacity. Our schools are downstream from it. Our government, every institution in our country is going to be affected by what happens in our culture. So if we allow the just acceptance of what I refer to as collective insanity, you're going to see some crazy stuff happen. And this is like the tip of the iceberg. So I think lately social issues matter a lot to me. Abortion's a huge one. It's the greatest, you know, like mass murder we've seen in our lives. 60 million. It is the #1 cause of death last year. But anyways, there's a lot. That's why I stay on so much. You know, there's so much to talk about. But yeah.
There's an interesting thing that I'm watching happen in real time, which is the overcorrection So the reactivation of conservatives that have been asleep for so long, like you were saying, but I'm watching the overcorrection to, do we go backwards to a time where people believed that the world was better, including a culture, including what was allowed? I mean, like you said, if we go back 10 years, just make it 20 years. How different of a world culturally were we? So I'm interested to see, once this whole wokeism, and it is dying. It is dying. They've had 50 years to get inside of our institutions. We've had a year and a half, 2 years to really start fighting it. They're losing. People are waking up. Once they wake up, what do they do then? Right? Because it's not like they're going to go back to sleep like they were for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting.
But you mentioned like the overcorrection, right? That's human history. It's just a repeating tale of things go too far this way, then they violently course correct, and oftentimes they go a little bit too far. So we always have to kind of keep that in mind and shoot for true north. You know, we're probably not going to hit it every time, but you know, like as we see some of this stuff, I've had people jokingly call me like a regressive. They're like, "Oh, we're progressivists." I'm like, "Well, I want nothing to do with that." Like, if we're talking about it's progress to chop up a child's junk, I'll go backwards a little ways, right? I'll go back to yesterday when we weren't doing that, when that wasn't the thing that was happening. Obviously, you know, you don't go back to like, you learn your lessons, right? You learn the lessons of the past, and hopefully cooler heads prevail. There's always going to be people who are just like, we need to do crazy irrational things. And
Right.
hold on, like, you know, step by step, right?
So where do you guys think the true middle is, right? Because we've been pushed so far to the left, and now it's coming all the way back to the right. And I think it potentially, like Fabian's saying, go too far right. Where do you guys think like the happy medium is?
It's tricky, man. That's tricky. I'm curious what he would think, but for me, it has an answer rooted in faith, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of that, as well as people being awakened to the fact that the government is not out for your best interest. We've been sleeping under this rock where we think that Uncle Sam's going to take care of us. So I think the new medium, or the new moderate, should not trust the government, but should trust other people and should trust their communities, because they've realized that's what really matters. So I think this entire charade that they've been running around us for the last who knows how many decades, you know, even especially since Hollywood really became something in the 1920s with the movie industry, I think people have really actually woken up. And for the government to regain any trust whatsoever back from the population, they're going to have to work extremely hard and go back to being a public servant like they were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think the medium is almost sometimes, maybe it's a goal not worth chasing. Like that moderate location, it depends on the climate. It depends on the circumstance, because when we live in a world that's so far from reality, I don't want to be moderate, right? I don't want to be in the middle, because in the middle is still giving up way too much ground. You know, I give the analogy sometimes, if I came up to you and I was like, dude, I want your left arm. Like, I really want your left arm. And you're like, no, that's crazy. I'm not going to give you my left arm. And I said, well, okay, we'll meet in the middle. I'll take it from the elbow down. Like, you're still not going to do that, right? That's crazy. You're not going to be like, yeah, you know, we'll meet in the middle. I'll be moderate. So the foundation just has to be truth. And I don't know where everybody lands on their faith, on things like that. But to me, it becomes more evident as time goes on that it just has to be bedrock, and bedrock is Christ. Everything goes back to worldview, you know, kind of covers everything. And truth is in the gospel. And if we get away from that and we try and like put this middle ground somewhere else, I don't really care about middle ground. I care about truth, you know, and I think that's what we need so badly. But that's, you know, that's my 2 cents on it. There's probably a compelling counter to that, but I don't know what could be compelling to me. I don't know what could be more compelling than like, this is our goal, is the gospel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right on getting a worldview that's based on truth. But I think that there's a lot of responsibility in truth, right? Because for a long time, and conservatives especially, they've just been following the crowd, just kind of seeing the inches getting taken bit by bit, and not really understanding what's going on, like why everything's happening, why people are feeling sick and unmotivated, and all this kind of stuff. So I feel like there's a huge level of responsibility that has to be taken in knowing what's going on, knowing what's going into your mind, what's going into your body, like why you're doing what you're doing, what the system is around you, and how to break free from it, right?
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about this. technology has historically worked to make the people better. That's what its intent is, right? More recently, it's been taken over by these people who have just been harvesting it for control, 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 control. I just heard Tucker Carlson today talking about how Google has over 20,000 computer science PhDs that are only working on the search algorithm. They literally control information. And if they wanted to, they can completely change whatever they want. No one knows what it is that they're doing. So I envision a future where you combine morality like religion, but you combine it with technology that's actually done or that's actually meant to do good in people's lives rather than just harvest data and get more power and control. We've never seen a world like that. And I think having the combination between those two things and people who actually want to do good would be something really interesting to go down the rabbit hole and think about what a world would look like.
Technology and a biblical worldview, I feel like that'd be relatively hard to marry, just because I feel like technology is such a distraction from God. And I mean, I know I have the Bible app on my phone. Do you know how often I open it versus Instagram or Twitter? Like,
Yeah.
I'll just be straight up like.
Yeah. I think it's a scary merger. I think if it could be done, it would be awesome.
Mhm.
Like, it'd be really cool. But then we see, what are y'all thoughts on like this Neuralink, right? Musk says that somebody has now been implanted with Neuralink. I say this with complete 100% sincerity. You will have to kill me. I will never put that. I will literally never, ever, ever even remotely consider putting something in my brain. Like, no, dude, this is a hill I die on. And I will happily be like that old Neanderthal that everyone's making fun of. Like, look, he's so backwards, he won't get the Neuralink. Kill me, man. I'm not doing it. I'm not touching it. No way.
I'm right there with you, man. I'll be that Neanderthal with you.
I've been a bit of a fan of the Neuralink since Elon started talking about it in like 2016-ish, I think, 2017 maybe. I love technology, and I guess you can maybe label me like a technologist, but I really like seeing what the limits of human ingenuity can do. However, that being said, it's extremely dangerous. So the fact that they can program thoughts into your brain, the fact that they can literally run ads that you can't get out of your head, that is incredibly scary. That's why I was saying technology, if done for the right purposes, can do a lot of good things, like let people walk again, and whatever it is that it needs to do. The blockchain solves a lot of that. The open source software with the blockchain, that is still in its next iteration. We're going to see what this next bull market brings. You have really smart people that create things when there's money to be made in a capitalistic sort of way. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it is a little scary.
Well, theoretically, they could just reprogram you like they used to do with MK Ultra, right? We're seeing a
Like
news
the media
article.
does now.
Well, but in like a really real way, right? And I mean, there's even a story going around about some like probably like a CIA plant, but the media's parading him around like a MAGA extremist, and he went and like murdered his dad and put it on camera and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's for sure MK Ultra or some version of that. So what would stop the government or somebody from hacking that, right? If you put a piece of technology into your brain, like you're owned. Like, in my view, like, even if you're not owned today, when you get it, you will be owned in the future. Like, you're not going to be your own person. Am I wrong?
Well, the only way that I can see it doing it or working is if you had something in you that didn't connect or that couldn't be hacked. So it's basically on the blockchain and it only works for you. It's like self AI. But then you would have to ensure that whoever created it wouldn't have any backdoors. If it's code, it could be hacked. So then what do? Do you allow AI to write a specific code that's only to you? And then now you're putting power in the hands of the AI to secure you. Now you're relying on the computers to secure you from other computers. So it becomes this whole it's even hard to fathom what that
The
looks
Black
like.
Mirror episode, like that's straight out of which is again why I'm like, I'll be the Neanderthal dude. You ain't putting that crap in me. Like, no way. I'm so much of the like crotchety old man. I joke about it because I'm blessed with a very youthful face, but I'm like an 85-year-old man at heart. And so like I hear about cars, cars with computer chips most of them be shut down remote. Like what's that, AAA or whatever it is, they can shut your car down remote. I don't want that. I'm like such a conspiracy, like old crotchety old man. I'm like, no, dude, give me the stick shift. Give me like, I want something old that nobody's gonna hack, that I can drive my butt away. Like, I'm afraid of the day and age where, you know, the government says, oh, hey, you hypothetically happen to have been in a specific location in our nation on January 6th. So we're gonna shut your car down. And it's like, ooh, no, thank you. You know, were either of you there on J6? Not like incriminating yourself or anything.
No, I wasn't there. I was watching it on Twitter unfold, and I was like glued to my phone. I was like, "There's no way that this is really happening."
I was not there.
I had a first person view, is what I'll say. I was very there. I was not in. I didn't break any laws. I was I had people. Okay, this is funny to me. I posted about being there. I live streamed from being in the city of DC. I don't want to say in the Capitol because people crap their pants. They're like, you were in the Capitol. Like, no, and chill. I wasn't like the guy with his feet up in Nancy's desk, but like I was there. And so all of these liberals on TikTok started going berserk. They're tagging in my stuff at FBI on TikTok. Well, if you went to the at FBI page, it's run by like a 13-year-old kid in middle school. And so like all these people are like, get him FBI. Like they're all reporting me to the FBI. And I'm like, well, I didn't break any law, but you're tagging a 13-year-old. Like, what do you think if that's not like an IQ test, like to sit here and be like, I'm going to tag the FBI on you and they're going to come and arrest you. I was like, dude, I know the First Amendment. I was exercising 3 of the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. Like, we're fine. Don't worry about it. But you know, like stuff like that, I left, and I was like an hour down the road. We turn on NPR because I drove there. We turn on NPR, and I'm already being called like a terrorist. I was like, whoa, what? Like I walked around. Like, what are you talking about? All of these terrorist people. Like, what is so blown out of proportion? And I remember just thinking, like, man, what if they could just like turn off your car and just start rounding people up? What if they could just, you know, because it doesn't take much. Like, human nature is bad. I firmly believe that our ruling state is bad. Like, we're doing well when we don't do bad because we just are we're fallen, and we just naturally tend toward the bad. And so we have to put as many safeguards as humanly possible to protect us from ourselves and people and anything like that. So the more, like, technology is a blessing, no question. All 3 of us would be dead if it weren't for like the wonders of modern technology and like medical advancements. But at the same time, it's a very double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what else helps you keep you in
sure.
line is a good woman. And people are being single for a lot longer and not getting married. So what do you think these guys are doing when they're at home just causing a ruckus and no one's there to straighten them out?
For real. Well, you know, I'm noticing this. This could be completely like anecdotal, but I think conservatives are starting to get married young. Like in the last year and a half, the number of conservative influencers, I had to hear it the whole time. My now fiance was like, they got married too. They're getting married now. Like, they're getting engaged. And I was like, just wait your turn. Like, it's okay. But so many young people, like young, and I think it's awesome. I'm happy to see it. But I think younger conservatives are starting to have kids. But, you know, like millennials waited till they were 35 to get married. I'm like, we're going to have a problem with our population if we keep at that rate. But that's a problem for, 20 years from now, I guess.
Well, it's interesting now that now there's a battle who can have the most kids. The Palestinians are literally saying breed like rats. They're telling people go have as many kids so we can take over and install a caliphate. And you have the conservatives who are like, yeah, we got to do the same thing. So now it's a race to see who can have the most people in case anything goes down. You can, which is pretty crazy. What's going to happen in 30 years when we have a bunch of people who are like, yep, no, I was born because I had to fight you. And you were born because you had to fight me.
So are we in like the Cold War version of a baby boom? Is that what we're gonna like, the Cold War, the cold baby? There's got to be a really good way to say that, but I mean that's what we're in right now.
The baby battle, one side's killing their babies though, so yeah, it's terrible. I've seen people who are like, oh, it's fine. Like all of the abortions are liberals that are aborting their kids. And it's like, well, that doesn't mean those kids should have died. That's a terrible justification for, I've seen conservatives unironically make that point. And it's very disgusting to me. Like, no, that's, we don't just go around like killing innocent babies because their parents were stupid. Thankfully, because, there'd be a lot of people who died because their parents were stupid. But yeah, I mean, just logistically, they are going to inadvertently like breed themselves out of existence because the liberals aren't having kids. They've been told that it's like you have to not have children for climate change or something like that. Humans are the real plague. You know, the same cringy movie plot that's been rehashed like 100 times. Humans are the real virus. And now they're not having kids. And so, you know, if conservatives have a lot of kids, they're going to wake up one day and there's going to be like a lot more of us. Like there's, and even without like a hard conflict, voting, there's going to be a lot more of us voting. There's going to be a lot more of us, you know, doing things like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the one thing that conservatives need to change though is how they're educating, because the left isn't reproducing as fast. They have to convert from other means, right? And so that's with the education system. So I think along with this conservative baby boom, we're also going to see a whole bunch of homeschool like systems and apparatuses like pop up, and it might even be like a chain of private school type environments, but it's not going to be like Department of Education indoctrination camps.
I think it's good.
It's going to be really good. I posted a video on my X account, and it was basically a parallel between jail and the public school system, and it showed like the buses and like the playgrounds and even the lunch halls, and it was like, why is it the same system? What's going on here? Obviously it's not the same, but it was like there was too many parallels where like I just couldn't unshare the video. I could not share the video.
Yeah, I think what we're getting into is a decentralization of education, which is how it always was, right? Anything centralized is going to have the power in the hands of a few, right? The elites. So I think this whole homeschooling thing and taking your kids out of public education is good for the human race, because there needs to be diversity, right? Everyone talks about diversity, right? Okay, this is the best way how to have a diverse people and diversity of thoughts is have the individual parents raise their own damn kids instead of entrusting it in the hands of a state, so they can go slave away all day working for someone, and everyone pays more taxes. So the state wins. It's a win-win. So decentralization is the name of the game, I think, in everything.
yeah, I heard a good quote on public education that was, "Don't send your kid to Caesar for 8 hours a day and wonder why he comes back a Roman." You know, if the government controls what your child is learning, what government would ever tell its people how to overthrow them? Like, you know, the number of Americans right now that do not know, for example, the Declaration of Independence says when any government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Like the number of Americans that literally don't know that that's fundamental to our country. Do you think the public school, I mean, they're going to mention it, right? I have this clip that every like 7 months, somebody reshares it and it goes viral from some like boomer bot account that like just reshares people's stuff, and it'll just take off. But it's a clip from when I was doing radio where I was talking about how the public school system, I believe, intentionally really doesn't focus on the Declaration of Independence. Because if you go through the grievances laid out by Jefferson, they mirror what we're going through right now. Like, it's scary. They actually are in many ways a lesser version of what we're currently going through with our government. And so I was just talking about that. But I have people that are like, no, they teach the Declaration of Independence. Really? Like, do they really teach the Declaration of Independence in schools? They reference its existence, but they don't talk about the spirit of it, because the spirit of it is now called an insurrectionist. The spirit of the Declaration, you know, like even among conservatives, a lot of times there's this very, I guess maybe the word would be soft, a very soft take on like how to handle politics. And, you know, you look at the Sons of Liberty during the, you know, the Samuel Adams and John Adams and et cetera, the Boston Tea Party. Like if conservatives today, think about this, did the Boston Tea Party went and broke onto a ship and threw like millions of dollars of product into the ocean, all of the conservative like talking pundit class would be like, we don't do that. What are we, Antifa? And it's like, I get it. We don't do that. Like we don't want to damage people's stuff. I'm not advocating for that. But the revolutionary spirit has been lost. And that is a bad place to be. When you're a nation founded on it, and Jefferson had multiple quotes talking about the value of the spirit of revolution. Now it's not called spirit of revolution. It's you're an insurrectionist and you get banned from office and your bank accounts get frozen and you get sent to prison without, having a court date, and you rot away in a gulag for 3 years. And very different times, man. It's again, scary, the parallels between now and the grievances that Jefferson wrote about. You could make a good case it's force, you know, and even building up to that, like in the earlier 1770s, you had the insufferable acts, you had the intolerable acts. We're talking about a tax on tea. We're talking about a tax on paper, on stamps, on ink. Like these are things that now we're getting totally just brutalized on everything that we touch. Our money is taxed 100 times. And, you know, they were willing to fight about it. So I don't know. Do you think the government's going to teach your kids that? No, they're not going to teach your kids that, because then your kids might one day exercise the duty that's lined out in the Declaration of Independence.
God forbid, right?
God forbid it ever came to that. But,
yeah, I'm actually reading Jefferson right now, and exactly what you said is so on point. I felt like I was reading someone who was talking about the government right now. It's incredible. Like the bloated bureaucracy of the British government when they were leaving, or, you know, when they were over here, and all the stuff that they did just to mess with them. The way that they, I mean, it was just, it's sad. And he literally wrote a letter, and I'm reading that letter that he wrote, I believe he wrote it to King George, and say, this is what we're dealing with. You need to fix this, or else we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he led, you know, basically line by line, is the stuff that's happening to us right now. It's incredible. And it really gives you like, it really makes you appreciate what they went through and what they did, because it's very like, oh yeah, I've heard about, you know, it's very abstract. Oh yeah, Jefferson, and they signed this paper, and then they fought. But there was so much more than that. And you're like, you know, like you said, I never learned this in school. All you get is a cursory view of the Declaration of Independence, but you don't really go in depth into it.
Yeah,
and that's the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you even look at like what the founders did and the Sons of Liberty did, I mean, there's even a lot of parallels to like what's going on today, right? Our Boston Tea Party was probably Bud Light.
Yeah.
Right. Probably canceling Bud Light, which I mean, I'm pretty happy about that. But along with the like deplatforming and all this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, that's the book that
Jody asked what I was reading, and it's just Jefferson, all of his writings.
That's awesome.
But a lot of the founders actually got deplatformed, and back then what that means is they were kicked out of their house. Like there was one guy who had this, and I can't remember the founder's name, but he had this like fantastic house with this like plantation, all this kind of stuff. The British came in and they turned it into like a pig farm. They literally turned his like beautiful house, and they like, I think they like did terrible things to his wife and kids, and they kicked him out, and they turned his beautiful house into like a pig. Like that's one of the most like abhorrent things that you can think of. So like there's so many parallels today with what happened back in the Revolution. It just sucks that, you know, London moved from, you know, London to DC.
Yeah. It really did.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite parallels, and y'all might know this, you might not, but so the actual shooting of the Revolutionary War, we always think 1776, but it was 1775. It was whenever the shot heard round the world was fired, Lexington and Concord. It was in 75. And this is something that I mean, when you learn it, right, you learn in school that there was a fight and they fought at Lexington, they fought at Concord, blah, 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 the start of the Revolution. You know, you probably watched like the Schoolhouse Rock thing with the song and the dance, which is like super. I remember being in 5th grade watching the Schoolhouse Rock song and dance about that. Like, I'm going to go fight some British people. Like, I was just sitting there in class, like, I mean, let's do it. Like, round 2, where are the redcoats? But one of the things that they don't really hammer home is that the significance of Lexington and Concord respectively, like they weren't just targeted for no reason. That was where, back in the day, right? So they had, you know, the old school muskets and cannons were gunpowder, just straight up gunpowder. Well, you didn't really want to keep like a large supply of gunpowder in your home. They would keep a fighting supply, but then they had munitions depots, specific locations where they kept the guns, the ammo, the cannons. Lexington and Concord were munitions depots. That's where they kept their guns. And so the whole like famous Paul Revere's "The British Are Coming" and all of this stuff, they found them, they caught them on their way to Lexington and Concord in the middle of the night. The British were going to come take their guns because they could tell that everything was brewing and brewing and brewing. And the founders were so worried about this. It was actually a child that tipped them off. He heard a drunk redcoat talking about this in a bar. Kid was just hanging out in the bar, went and told like the pastors, and they told all of it, word got around. And so that's where the whole like Paul Revere's Great Ride and the Midnight Ride and all of that stuff, the reason they were fighting was they came for the guns. And that's another thing. Like, did they teach that to the 5th graders? Like, why did they pick Lexington and Concord to go? Like, the British just attacked random towns? No, that's where they kept the guns. It was very intentional. And again, that's lost. You know, we don't talk about that anymore. We're just like, Schoolhouse Rock. Yeah.
Well, now the History Channel is all about aliens
Yes.
all the time. So they don't even teach anything about that. It's all the aliens and the pyramids, and it's such a dumbed down version of what it used to be. No wonder people are just so dumb now.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is we have the most information we've ever had at our something from across the world with the push of a button, which is incredible. We have all this information, and yet we don't seek it out. We're comfortable.
Yeah, we're like the people in Wall-E, right? Just in the chairs and just kind of hanging out, just doing nothing. I mean, it's kind of insane. Well, it is 6:31. I know we had a hard stop at 6:30, so I wanted to wrap it up and respect your time, Victor. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, this live was brought to you by Breakaway_USA. So go follow that. Go follow me, Victor, and Fabian. Let's blow up our accounts, shares, likes, saves, comments, the whole 9 yards. Send this live to your liberal uncle who keeps texting you that masks still work, because they don't, and that he needs to hear more truth. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll speak truth tomorrow.
Right on. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.